stand right in front of them. Is okay?
That's fine.
Welcome. It's just this is just so moving. Thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to the artists for Jenn for being here. And welcome to the audiences who are watching from afar. I don't know where you are, but where we are, we're on Treaty 20 territory, the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. And you know, those peoples have some traditional teachings about the lands and the waters, and boy, do we need to heed them. I don't, you know, obviously preaching to the converted here, but, you know, obviously the whole planet is trying to tell us right now what we should have been doing for the last 150 years. COVID itself is as we talked about, you know, with Victoria's residency, COVID itself is a climate crisis, a human-caused climate crisis event. So those traditional teachings are ones we really need to hear, and we need to hear them in the present. And you know, this is not a situation that can be solved by one group of people alone. We have to work on this together. We are all in this together. There is no planet B. So I am grateful and for those teachings, and may we heed them. Yes. Basically, I'm not going to talk for too long. I'm going to, first of all, just say how this is going to go, hopefully. It's an idea of how it will go. The idea is that the artists are going to go in a certain special order, basically the order that they are on these postcards. So we'll start with Jenn Cole. And what I'll do is like a brief introduction of each artist, very brief. And if they don't like how I've introduced them and their work, they will say what they actually would have liked to have heard. And then I've said everybody can talk for up to 5 minutes or each residency, because we've got like a couple, you know, Hilary and Sarah work together and Elisha and Justin work together. That's just so that like it's not like 18 hours long, because obviously arts and precarity we can talk for a long time. But then after we've done that sort of brief overview from everybody, then we'll open it up and you guys can ask questions, the audience can ask questions. Eryn's going to be monitoring the chat, so if the faraway audiences, peoples have questions, we can look at those. And if there's no questions, then we will say whatever we want at that point, which I think won't be too hard. I also can't help myself, but I do have to acknowledge how like the Last Supper this looks. With the disco. The disco ball is there. That's my disco ball. I want to explain the disco ball. It's there because I promised everyone the panel would be fun. Done. All right. So first off, our wonderful Jenn Cole. Jenn is mixed ancestry, Algonquin artist, dance artist, also does beautiful academic writing as well. That doesn't feel always like academic writing because it's so beautiful. And Jenn's work, I could ramble on about all of your work, so I'm going to try not to do that. Jenn, I will let you speak for your own work, but I will say that this was back in August. That can't be true.
Yep, it was August.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was hot. I remember it being hot, and we liked being at the theater because there was air conditioning.
It was cool in the theater.
Okay. So Jenn's work, I will let you speak about that, Jenn. I'm going to get out of the way. Oh, just sorry, one more thing. Sorry, I'm so sorry. We've all had COVID tests, just so you know. So, sorry, Jenn.
No, that's exciting. That's good news. I'm assuming it all went well. Yeah.
You don't have COVID, Bill.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I really quickly, I guess, in under 5 minutes. Swim is a movement piece for 1 to 4 performers, and has a kind of porous architecture right now to accommodate COVID times. And we're just imagining what it's like when Salmon Nation returns to Mississauga territory, to this watershed, and what that will mean for the lock system. And we imagine actually that the salmon take everyone on a lift lock tour, and then they dynamite all the lock systems, and some lucky guests get to be there for the experience. And then what happens when Odinabe takes her place again, moves more like how she used to, and what swamplands are created and what medicines come back, and then what does that mean for like the grannies, and can they just have better tea all winter long? And so it was like this thing that we were imagining, and maybe we had 4 gestures or 5 movement gestures when I came into the theater, and Wes Ryan was part of the choreographic exploration there. And then I know, like, I've seen lots of your work out of the residencies, and it seems like you don't always ask Kate, Eryn, Ryan, and Shannon to do everything all the time. But they really did everything all the time. So they were part of the creative circle every day that we were spending together. And Eryn went out and gathered sounds from the lift locks from underneath the lift lock on Hunter Street. Shannon was composing sound that was like the destruction of the lock system coming down. My friend Simon recorded like a lift lock cruise, schmarzy, schmoomy, fun tour guide voice. Everyone helped design movement. Everyone helped us figure out what to do with sound, with structure. And so what we ended up with was really, I think maybe at least a dozen sequences and scenes, a soundscape, costumes, words from people like Elder Doug Williams we want to feature. Yeah, like characters emerged. So there's a Cookum and Benonji now, so a granny salmon and a kid salmon and a granny human and a kid human, and they kind of overlap while they create this future and imagine it. And then the salmon characters became really funny. And we discovered that there's a Salmon Nation synchro squad, and they're great. They're really good synchro team. So I don't know, I guess my favorite way of working is to just be making with other people in the moment. And so I got to do my favorite thing. And it was also the first thing I was doing with real human beings outside of my child in a good long while, and it felt really good. Like my spirit was really nourished up, and my body was working, and my imagination was going, like it was on fire. And then we were connecting in that beautiful way that we connect when we make art together. It's like my favorite way of hanging out. So it was really special. And now there's nothing polished, but we just generated so much material for me to sit with while this piece rests over the next year. And I don't think I'm going to do anything public with it for at least a year, and just let everything juice up and grow in my imagination. And then we did all this documentation. So I have lots of sounds and music, voice compositions, and lots of documentation of movement and stuff. And so there's so much material, and I think something long will come out of it. Something maybe 40, 55 minutes long. Maybe a lift lock cruise. I don't know. Yeah, so that's what we did, and I liked it, and I'm really thankful. We got some community feedback too from William Kingfisher and Carrie Beattie and Carr Mumford and Ryan, and that was really helpful. Is that good for everyone?
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. Wow, that brought back so many memories. Yeah, it was great. Up next was Niambi Tree, and Niambi hasn't been able to join us tonight. Niambi's working from Halifax, and I like Halifax. As many of you know, I'm from Newfoundland. Halifax is like Newfoundland light, you know? But I wish I could reach over and fix things in Halifax right now for Niambi. So Niambi's had some real struggles getting a venue lined up, getting the tech support that she needs to do the work. Niambi is, I knew Niambi as a spoken word poet, and then she's moved into making wires, sculptures, and jewelry, like beautiful things. And she's still going to do the work. She's looking to make a video that is her exploring old poems, but she's a different person now. She's a new person, so she's exploring her old poems, but with this new self. So that work will happen. It's there's just been some struggles, and like I said, I just wish I could fix it, because if she was here, she could be here, and everything would be perfect. Because I was going to say this at the end, but maybe I will just say this now. Honestly, the dream team of Ryan and Shannon and Eryn, I will start crying. Like just the most amazing team of people to work with. And there is, we all know. And there's no way that this festival could happen without the Theatre on King. And Niambi struggles in Halifax, or mostly I'm thinking about her, but it also makes me go, yeah, we have something pretty special here, because that wouldn't happen to an artist who booked this space. So anyway, my heart goes out to Niambi, but we're still in touch and trying to offer support from afar. So next, then, we'll move on to Mr. Brackenridge. Brad is a fabulous puppet artist, and he does other things. I mean, he has a company called The Nervous System, which originates puppet-based theater. But as I think most of us know, he's also a fabulous actor, and all-around great human being. And but yeah, his puppetry work is really unique, and there's nobody. I don't want to insult people in Peterborough, so I'm not going to say anything more. But he really, the puppet work he's doing in Peterborough is, I'm very tired.
Save it.
Very tired. Anyway, it's quite unique, and the way Brad DeBelt's work is very embodied and kind of, I always feel like it's like Jackson Creek under the ground, and then the work comes out, and then you're like, whoa, and Brad's like, why are you surprised? So, Brad, if you would like to just, I don't know, say whatever you want for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I sort of like that coming up. My project was, when was that exactly? I cannot remember.
It says
About a month and
September, it says.
September, right.
I don't believe any of these dates.
Right. Yes, we all had a weekend here. I don't know if everyone knew that or not, but actually you had a bit longer. 2 weeks. Yes, prior to it, I knew the piece I was going to do. Prior to it, I was like, oh, I've got all these great ideas. I had made some things over a period of a year and a half-ish. It's one of those projects that just get back to every so often. Lots of great ideas, really pumped about it. And then it was sort of a couple days leading into when I came into here, I realized, still doing the same project, but it shifted totally. All the things that I really planned on doing, I wasn't interested in doing. It didn't seem to make any sense. And it sort of just, it just kind of, I woke up one day shortly before I came here, so it was a bit apprehensive about what I was going to do here. It's like, great, I got a week, I can bring in the things I made, but some of those weren't going to be used, and it just felt like I wanted to extend and maybe go in December or something like that. But anyway, I tackled it head on. My project is still a short story by Jorge Luis Borges, Argentinian writer. Wrote this story about the Minotaur. It's called The House of Asterion, and it's told from the Minotaur's perspective. So that intrigued me. I've always been fascinated with sort of the loner character, the giant maze. I think everyone's kind of identified at some time or seen many stories about it, all the myths, of course. So my take originally was I was going to be the Minotaur. I made this huge mask, which I'm glad I made it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use it yet. And I was going to dress up as the Minotaur. And that I just threw away. I thought, okay, I don't want to be him, or I want to be a different version of him and not. So I just ended up, as I was thinking about it, it was more sort of just me, myself, being a Minotaur, as opposed to someone with horns or taking on kind of any affectation or anything. So that was interesting. I had a bit of I adapted it from a translation. So it was in Spanish, then an English gentleman translated it, and then I kind of adapted it a bit with the help of Kate. And that was kind of interesting. I think we came up with some kind of really kind of cool shifts on it. The feedback on it at the time, people wanted sort of more about sort of the myth of it, not maybe just from the story, but.
And you presented it, like you did a work in progress like you talked a lot about your process. You didn't show the play.
Well, yes, that's
Yeah.
right. I did a reading at first of it, and then I kind of talked about all the things I was going to do. That was a big part of it. It was like, yeah, I'm going to have this cool thing, and this big tunnel thing's going to be. So I'd love to hear me doing it, because I have no idea really what I said. I just kind of went off on this tangent.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Brad?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Am I mumbling? Yes. So yeah, the talk. It was nervous. I was nervous, but it was great. It was just like, okay, and I just spouted out again. I don't quite know exactly what I said, but yeah, I just talked about what I kind of wanted to do, and then some of the things that I did get a chance to do was some projections with Eryn Lidster. We had gone in a couple days prior and filmed some stuff, and part of the set that I did keep were these sort of pillars, kind of represented different sizes, and so the projections would be onto those and onto me. So that was kind of fascinating, and we had just a little bit of light stuff. I'm just kind of looking at how these pillars sit, and that I did a lot of sitting and thinking, because I knew it was going to be something different, and I had to not just rely on what I wanted to do, but sort of think it out. So I had the luxury, of course, of doing that. I didn't have to have anything done by the end of the week other than a talk. So overall, it was a great experience. It was very kind of humbling, and yeah, it was wonderful. And of course, as I'm sure everyone will mention, the staff here just gave me what I needed, or what I thought I needed, and which I wanted something just minimal. I didn't want, all kinds of stuff happening. That wasn't where I was at, especially since I was doing a bit of a redo or a rethink on it. But I did make some things, like some sort of different puppet things, some rough ideas in it, and yeah, people really responded to it. I was surprised, because I just thought, in my head, I still thought, I just didn't have enough to really show anyone, but here we go, and but yeah, I think it went well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Thank-
that good? Is that
that's
fine?
good.
Is that?
Can you see me now?
Go farther that way.
That's good.
The other way. There you go.
I've been out of the frame the whole time.
Now you're
This
good.
disembodied voice.
You're good.
Hello, online audience. Thank you, Brad. Yeah, that was fun. So up next we were Justin Millian and Elisha Rubacha. I mean, they do lots of things, but they're writers, and they're incredible writers. Justin, pretty much poet, attempted to write a play, I believe, at one point. Elisha's written plays and short fiction and poetry, and they run Birdberry Press, which is an amazing independent press. And I will let you speak more about what you did here. Go.
Okay, so well, I've always wanted to, in particular, I've always wanted to do a marathon of some kind, art marathon, but that was like in my much younger days. I always thought like, oh, I'll do like a rooftop thing, like I don't know, like lame like that. And so anyway, lost the idea. And then it was last Precarious Festival that Carl was going to do.
Yeah.
It was last one that Carl was going to do a marathon event, and that tragically did not happen for stupid reasons that aren't his fault. Because he's stupid. I just quit. It didn't happen, but it was like, oh yeah, right, like this is, and he was training and like running and like
We didn't train.
Well, speak for yourself. I didn't train at all. Building up alcohol
Tolerance.
So we just kind of started spitballing from there, and then so the idea is that we were Elisha was going to design 24 unique covers for 24 books in 24 hours, and I was going to write 24 poems to go into those books. So 24 being the obvious theme here.
On the 24th of September.
On the 24th of September, the 24th month. And so we did a 24-hour marathon event, and we'll never do it again.
But we loved it. It was really great. It was exhausting, but it was good. We had amazing support, as again, I'm sure everyone's going to mention. Kate and everybody were just incredible and there for everything we needed, so that was great. But it was also like kind of the heart of the idea grew out of us wanting to show invisible labor, which is often a theme in the Precarious Festival, I feel like. Like, I've done projects like that. I know, like, Eryn Lidster did a whole play called Invisible. And so, it's been kind of a running trend through the festival's various iterations. But so we wanted to just, like, show how artists exhaust themselves. And so what better way to do that than to stay up for 24 hours and put together, like, an impossible project, which we actually called Impossible Book, I think. Was that the title? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And so those we sold them all before we even started making them. People sent in prompts. So we got impossible prompts and asked people to think of like what's the hardest thing to write a poem about, and got some very interesting answers, which you can watch still. It's up on the TTOK YouTube channel, I think. So we talked about those and then did it. Just dove in and stayed up for 24 hours. Did one each hour. So Justin wrote a poem every hour. I did a cover every hour, and then we could like kind of, if we budgeted our time well, we could have a break. So there were a couple of naps, but not very long ones. And
the staff here set up an air mattress for us in the lobby.
That was glorious.
But there was no real.
Yeah.
I think maybe I passed out a couple times.
I think you passed out because you had to be woken up at one point.
I'm usually up very late at home, so I was just like, it's midnight, like time for a couple of beers, and then didn't realize I gotta be up till 7. Like, why did we start at? Somebody pointed this out. Like, we didn't have to start at 7.
You didn't have to start at 7.
We could have started at 7 a.m.
Yes.
So we were up all the first day, and then it's like,
I woke up earlier than
right,
you too.
that's dumb. We could have just started at any time.
So it was actually much more than a 24-hour marathon in terms of like what we were doing beforehand. But that was the part of it.
So we would show you a cover or read a poem.
Oh, I should have brought my
book. We don't have the books because we didn't keep any. They were all sold. So we have nothing to show for it.
Other 24 people do though. Just not us. Do we have anything else?
Was it fun?
It was fun. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. There were hard moments, especially like Kate. What time would you say I started to break?
Like between 9 and 10 a.m. was like watching two people being tortured.
Yeah, that got a little tough.
You guys were really, it was awful to watch. Yeah.
But we came around though. We got another win after that.
And overnight was fun with Ryan. Ryan was hanging out with us on the overnight shift.
Yes.
That was fun. A lot of highlights. And again, as per usual, everybody here was amazing. And it was also awesome just to be in the space. But one thing we realized before we started was like, because it's going to be live stream, we couldn't have any music. Yeah. So just quiet other than people talking for 24 hours.
Oh, I guess there's one thing we haven't mentioned, which was the chat. So it
was
live stream, but the chat was actually amazing. We expected like nobody to show up to watch it.
Hey, who wants to watch 24 hours of poetry? Just, like, oh god.
Well, and like
nobody.
Not even poetry. Like 2 minutes of poetry every hour.
Right, every hour.
And then that's it.
But the chat was well
attended. The chat
attended.
was so lively. Like Victoria was there and very supportive. There were a lot of people who like I think Esther. Is Esther here?
Annie.
And people would just like kind of hang out with us until it was too late for them, go to bed, and then we would wake up in the morning and like have coffee while watching us, and continue to engage. And so that was like really a big surprise to us because we expected it to be like more of an experiment than like an actual thing that people would watch. Like I thought people would watch what the amazing time lapse that Eryn put together. And that, that made sense. It was shorter, it was reduced. You could actually sit down and watch the whole thing, but people actually stuck with the live stream, which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you felt very, connected, I think, during that project, which was nice, especially after, COVID and such a long time of just being isolated.
And then it ended, and it was like, let's go party, and then I was asleep within an hour. But,
At least you thought you were dead in a ditch.
oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah, because we drank all that whiskey.
Well, you and I started drinking whiskey.
Kate made me drink whiskey 2 hours after. Anyway, it was very fun and very challenging and very something.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Thanks for letting us do it.
You're next, but I think I should say something first. We have a lot of funders, and we obviously couldn't have done it without, the Ontario Arts Council, a lot of funding. DBIA came through in a big way. Public Energy, of course, has been our partner with the Precarious Festivals from the beginning. New Canadian Centre gave us support for 2 of the residencies. Theatre Trent, John Howard Society, EC3, the Get Again Project, which is William Kingfisher. Yeah, lots of people came through Trent Radio. Anyway, take a look at this, and you'll see it really does take a village. And one of the things, the funding, I won't go on about this for too long, but it is a bit relevant to kind of, especially these residencies, well, a lot of them. But we all heard the word pivot a lot, right, artists, when the pandemic struck, and I just don't even get me started. The table flipping feelings that brings up in me, because people are like, well, put it online. It's like, do you want to watch, I'm holding my cell phone and wandering around my apartment being an actor? No, you don't. That's boring. To do it well online actually takes huge amounts of resources. And so part of what this festival has done for some of the artists, I won't speak for all of you, and certainly for this crew here at the theater, it's given us a chance to learn a lot and to get some technology that we didn't use before. Are we interested in continuing along that path? I'm not going to speak for other people. I know for me, I'm interested in hybrid events. I'm not personally interested in digital only at all. But that's just me. It's been really interesting trying to do both, and challenging, really challenging. And poor Eryn, the work isn't over. For Eryn. So the next artist up was Victoria Ward, who we're sitting in front of you. Victoria, I met Victoria in Toronto in the 90s, and when we were both part of the indie theater scene, and Vic was I was like, oh, because she is and was just so charming, fantastic, and talented. And our lives reconnected. And Vic moved quite soon after we knew each other into visual art, and so then coming back here and doing this residency was the first time coming back into a sort of theatrical milieu in many years, which it takes a kind of courage. And I'm not going to say anything more, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Kate, so when Kate knew me, I wrote this show called Kitten with Your Crucifix. I was in my 20s, and I presented it at Buddies and Bad Times Theater, which was the only gay theater company in North America at that time, and it was the only place you could see anything really radical in Toronto. And it was kind of like a hit in that world. Small, independent, alternative, people who like experimental, freaky stuff. And very gay, very open-minded about sexuality and non-binary and everything. So I wrote it, and it was kind of a hit, but then things went south for me in theater. I don't know. I left theater. I went into visual arts, and then I moved to the country. So I'd been living in downtown Toronto, and then I moved to the country. So I became like a rural bumpkin and a visual artist, and it was just like theater was really over for me until I bumped into Kate here in Peterborough, and then one thing led to another, and I got to know her through, and then Annie Yeager was very pivotal in this, and then I did the Precarious Festival a few years ago, and then Kate and Ryan were asking, did I have a script maybe that the TTOK might be interested in, and I sent them Kate with the Crucifix, and they liked it, and I was like, okay, and I hadn't even read it in whatever, I don't even want to say how many years that is. 1992 is a long time. And I was like, I hadn't even read it. So I was like, what did they like? So I had to go back and read it. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. And then they were like, no, don't be embarrassed, it's really good. And I was like, no, it's not. So then Kate and I talked for the last, and then the pandemic happened. We were going to do it, and then the pandemic happened. And then Kate and I tried to figure out, like, how could I do it? And she said, what if I inserted it into the Precarious Festival? Because in many respects, I kind of consider myself a kind of poster child for precarity because I've never had a job. I've only had contract work since I was 21. So, and I'm in my 50s. So I have only lived by the, I've only lived this way my whole life. So I don't know anything else. Like, I don't know what it's like to punch a clock. I don't know what it's like to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning every day. I don't know any of that. I don't know that world. And there's been highs and lows living like that. But for some reason, go for the grace of God or whatever that expression is, I have done it. Anyway, so I thought, okay, well, kind of, it doesn't, the subject matter isn't really about precarity, but I kind of feel like I'm the precarious example in the play. I don't know. Anyway, the play was about me being a young person and being raised, indoctrinized in the Catholic religion, and then how one day I left it and was free, shackle-free, and became the person that's sitting here right now. And so Kate and I were talking about like how we do it in the festival, and lo and behold, we got Ontario Arts Council money. I don't know how the hell that happened, but we did. And so we expanded it instead of 1 week to 2 weeks. And then Kate had this great idea about people that could be in it, and she got Bradley Boyle, who's brilliant, and the great Zach Tutt, who was a fantastic addition. And then, of course, like Shannon McKenzie, who's the most beautiful performer, like she's a beautiful performer. And then Eryn Lidster, who's like kind of a genius, right? Like Eryn does everything. And then, of course, Ryan and Kate, and we all know how great they are. So I had this I was working with like these unbelievably talented, amazing people. All of them brought something so different to the table. And I said to Kate, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to pull it apart. We can't. It was a one-woman show, and I was a cute, sexy little 25-year-old. I am not that anymore. We have to pull it apart. We have to do something else with it. So we pulled it apart. We gave Bradley all the sexy stuff. We gave, like Eryn and Shannon all the dancing, fun, performer stuff. We gave Zach the rock. He got to be the rock and roll Jesus guy. So it was like we pulled it all apart, and then
That's sexy.
Okay, it was all sexy. And then we put it all together, and I honestly have no idea. It was like a miracle. I have no idea. We worked really, really hard, but it all came together into this little 40-minute. Fantastic little show that we put on that was funny and thoughtful, and there was visuals and everything. Like like how it happened, I don't know. I was a blur in some respects, and yet I know how hard we worked because I was so exhausted afterwards. My God! But the thing that I realized now that I've been able to digest it for these past whatever weeks is that like it was such a gift to go back in time to something I did a long time ago. And I was a different person in a different world, and to bring it forward and to have people see value in it was so confidence building and so humbling at the same time. And really, when you're an artist, that is the perfect space. That's the gorgeous space to be in, when you're just full of confidence, but you're also devastated, you're also like humbled at the same time. Like there's that fine line, I don't know how to explain it, but that was every day for me in that experience. And I'm eternally grateful. I mean, I honestly think that one of the reasons it happened is because this space is magic. And I think, and I hate using that word magic when it comes to artists, because we work very hard, and we're dedicated, and we're hardworking, and we're committed, and that's why things happen. But there's a magic here. There's a specialness here. And I had a good friend from Toronto who also knew Kate and I from the 90s come to the show, and she just said to me, you know what, that space, it took me right back. It's kind of like Buddy's was in the early 90s. It's just this great eclectic place where talented people can come together and do really interesting things. And I think this particular Precarious Festival really shows that, because I think all of these residencies were extraordinary. All completely different, all really successful. And all I have to say is like Ryan, Kate, Shannon, Eryn, and the little world that is around them, like Brad and these guys and everybody, like, this is really special, and we are really lucky.
Honestly, well, I can't even start. Okay. The next artist was Carl. Carl is a musician. And yeah, we don't want to harp on what happened last year, but I was really happy that he could come back and make something happen. I personally was quite affected by the material in this residency, and I will let Carl describe it, I think, in more detail. Yeah. This is November. We're in November now. Yes.
Yeah. So what if I told you that you could have you could see all of the paintings in the world at maximum quality for just $10 a month? You would take the deal in a second, of course, because it's a great deal. And it sounds completely preposterous, but that is what is happening in music right now. And we are in it's December 3rd, so we just passed the Spotify Wrapped era, which happens every year. It's a brilliant marketing campaign that the biggest streaming company in the world has put out into the world for us to share and to promote them with. And my residency was about the streaming economy and sort of like looking at the numbers behind it and putting together this conceptual performance using some of the math behind it. So I did a long performance. I had intended to do a long performance for a previous Precarious Festival, but all of my stuff was stolen the night before it happened, and this was a very different performance. I wasn't doing like a song. The previous performance I was going to basically do a song for 8 hours, which was going to be a nightmare, but this was a different kind of nightmare because what I did instead was I created this soundscape that was made of a drum machine doing different things, and one thing that the drum machine was doing was this like high-pitched sort of like ticking sound, and the other thing that the drum machine was doing was this like really low kind of bass drum sound, and those were happening at intervals based on streaming income and physical object sales, and without getting too much into the math, because the math is, well, I mean, maybe let's get into the math. Just for like a minute, because it's important. Like, there is, I made a couple of posters that are like infographics that describe some of the math more in detail, but here's something fun you can do when you get back home. Go back through, because I'm sure you've seen some of your artist friends, posting their Spotify stats from the year. And God bless them, because like some of them should be very happy. Like I would be very happy if my songs were played 50,000 times this year. It would only mean that I made $150, but it would, in a way, it's a thrilling thing to be able to say, wow, my music was played in 60 countries by 50,000 people, and every time I see those things, I just want to comment underneath, like, $171. Wow, your music was played 400,000 times, like $600. Like, it is, musicians are getting, like, absolutely hosed by streaming companies, and we're paying for the privilege to do it. So what I did for the residency, in addition to creating the soundscape, was a local artist, Laura Thompson, did a sort of like visual representation of it. So there were these like sort of pieces of digital confetti kind of like flying around, and those represented streams, and every time the kick drum would hit, that represents a physical sale, and it would kind of swirl around. And over top of this whole thing, I was reading interviews and investor calls and all kinds of text from the CEO of Spotify. And And I went into this like in total I did this performance for 12 hours, and I went into it really thinking like, maybe I'll have like more compassion for this person because he's just a person like we are. And I came out of it feeling much less compassion. Like significantly less, actually. And not because I don't think that he's a person like me. He's not a person like me. He's not a person like any of us. He comes from the tech sector. He comes from wealth. He's now like a venture capitalist who invests in military artificial intelligence companies in Sweden and all kinds of fun stuff. And this is where the music industry is at right now. Like this is where we sit. And so the intention behind the project was to sort of really like dig into what is going on and try to communicate that to people and to really get people to ask themselves like, when you pay $10 a month for something that is essentially infinite, like you're paying for much more than you can consume. You can't possibly consume all of what they're giving to you. You can reach the end of Netflix. Like you can get to the final boss of Netflix. I have beaten the final boss of Netflix. It's different. It's a different thing. Sometimes people compare them and they say, well, like Netflix does the same thing. No, they don't. Netflix says no to most things, actually. Spotify says we're going to take everything. In fact, they pay the three major labels millions of dollars to be able to have their catalogs. And then everyone else has to pay to put their music onto it. And the result is that it is just like an infinity of music. You cannot reach the end of Spotify. You can't possibly consume all of that. But for $10 a month, you have the theoretical access to all of it. And that's where we just end up in this sort of swamp of artists being compensated literal fractions of pennies for things that matter. I could go on about this for a long time, but I will say I made more money this year selling 100 records than I have in the last 10 years of being an artist on Spotify. And that's like the profit that I made from the records, and I didn't make very much profit from them. Like it's shocking how much more you can actually support artists when you give them your money directly versus paying an intermediary for like an infinite buffet. So the intention behind the thing was to get people to sort of reckon with how much they're actually supporting artists when they pay $10 a month for everything. But it's also to get artists to think about like, is this really the best we can do?
So, when I'm complaining about the drive to do everything digitally, this is why. Musicians are the canaries in the coal mine. This is how it will go. There is no way that artists can thrive in a world where it's just this endless digital buffet. And I think it's Dennis Turpin who said, art comes from artists, it doesn't come from anywhere else. So, but I mean, obviously preaching to the converted here, but yeah. That being said, I do want to really put out a thank you to anyone who's watching online. and
thank you to the T-Talk crew. I didn't thank you because I'm a dink, but
Dink.
And also I'm a dink of an artist too, because I basically came in with a generally formed idea of what I wanted to do, and I was just like, this, go over here, this over here, blah blah blah. And they just suffered all of that very graciously. So thank you.
Well, every residence was so different. I think as you all know, right? Everybody came in with really different needs and expectations and hopes and dreams and fears, and that was one of the things I loved about it. I want to say quickly though, thank you to the First Friday crew and Watson and Lou. Right now this is being projected, you know, like called the gallery of sorts, and it's between Matterhouse and Watson and Lou, and this is being projected. Dan and Lindsay right now, our friends, are projecting it for us, so people can wander through and see that. And we are glad that we're able to have at least some kind of digital component for these works, for sure. And it's also been exciting to have more resources, like we're going to be able to house these on the website and people can see them, and so that's great. The next artist was Mithila, who is a trained Indian classical dancer and wanted to do a very personal piece and came in with a level of trust that was just so moving for me, and I learned so much working with her on this piece, and I think I'll just let you talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my piece was called Connecting and Disconnecting, and it was about my grief. I lost a loved one last year. I'm gonna slow down. This was the contingency plan for my show too. So when Kate first reached out to me, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I told her I just don't feel any connection to my grief being here because my loved one passed away in India, so it just felt very disconnected. And after I sent a few emails to Kate back and forth, we talked about how I'll be using movement, which was going to be the main part of my performance. But she also said maybe you can bring in some objects where you can found objects which can feel some sort of connection to you. And that was the hardest thing for me because I felt like there's no objects here that I could connect to. And Kate gave me suggestions and I was like, Kate, I can't connect to any of this. But what I found was, as I talked to Leslie, who also was part of my residency where she helped with the fabric, she told me, how about going to a thrift store and see if you can find something that you can connect to, if there were things from India or places where you might find some sort of fabric which you can connect to. So she actually helped me do some shopping because I hate shopping. She came with me to do that. So that was a first step before my residency started. But the day my residency, when I came here and even 2 days before, I was in so much fear and anxiety because I had no idea where to start, how to end. I didn't know anything. And I think I really need to give Kate a lot of appreciation and gratitude for really helping me with that. She sat with me, listened to my story, listened to the stories of my loved one, and she was with me and listened to all my emotions. And as I was crying, I made Kate, Eryn, everyone cry in the theater. It's true. And I found that the other part that was very challenging for me is I don't like to talk in public. I'm doing it now, but I think it's because the story is my story, so I find it easier to talk about it. But it was so interesting that Kate brought in some parts where she told me to talk, and it came so naturally, and I was like, oh, this feels good. And the 1 week I was here, I got everything I needed from Shannon, Eryn, Ryan, and Kate. It was just amazing. It felt so magical being here. I felt like my whole body was something shifted and something released out of me. And on the day of the show, like after I finished, I could tell something just left my body and it felt amazing. And I find that this space was so good for me because I hadn't danced so much in so long because of the pandemic, and this piece on grief was so personal to me that it was almost so healing and therapeutic. So I would just say, like, without the crew here, I don't think I would be able to do what I did. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a beautiful piece, and it was a great process. Yeah, and you'll be able to see it online, but won't be as good. I learned a lot. And then our next artist was Jon Hedderwick. Jon is an activist, a spoken word artist, an organizer. He's such a good organizer that everybody wants him to organize things. I mean, Jon's done work that's not spoken word, done some performance, but I think that's maybe more of a departure. Well, I'll let you say. I feel like it's a little more of a departure maybe than the spoken word. I don't know if I'm right. And yeah, so this story started at previous Precarious Festival, where Jon had a bit of a residency at Trent Radio and started digitizing these tapes that his great-grandmother had made. I'll let you say more. Yeah.
So I performed an in-process, I did an in-process performance of a piece that's called Bobby's Tapes. And I'll start with the story. So my great-grandmother, my Bobby Sarah, had Alzheimer's towards the end of her life. And I knew her very well. People had families a lot younger back then, and so she was somebody who was in my life until my teenage years. And so I had quite a relationship with her. She made the decision to move into a long-term care facility, and my mother and one of her aunts, the duty fell to them to clean out the apartment. And so I begged my way onto the cleaning crew and went with them to sort of spend some time in the apartment one last time before I would no longer be able to be there. And at one point I was pointed in the direction of a china hutch and asked to box it up, and I was told that it had been gone through, but if I saw anything in there I wanted, I could take it, and otherwise it was all going to the Salian. And so I started boxing, and I found a couple of blank tapes, and I thought, score, I'll make a mixtape, which I know I'm dating myself. And so that night in my room, I was sitting there, and I had my finger on the record button, and I was getting ready to record some god-awful song off AM 640, Tarzan Dan Top 7 at 7.
Yeah.
And and the thought comes to me that, how do I know this is a blank tape? There were no labels on them, and they were brand new, but they were unwrapped. And so I let my song play through, and instead I hit play. And my great-grandmother's voice came over the tape recorder. And she was telling stories that began in 1914, the beginning of the First World War. And it struck me that I didn't know stories from Europe, from my family, given that we are Jewish. So I listened for a bit, and the tapes got a little bit real. There was a story of a soldier being shot in the market while trying to loot Jewish stores. And I got my mother, and she took the tape away for 27 years. No, 30 years. 30 years. I was like 7, 8 years old. So I took the tape away for 30 years. And for a long time I begged, and I was like mid-story. I was like, talk about your cliffhanger. So I begged for a long time, and eventually let it go, and then my daughter was born, and I started asking again, and she gave them back. And she gave them back while I was doing my first residency with the Precarious3 Festival. So while I was working on a totally different project, I took advantage of the facilities at Trent Radio, and I digitized the tapes, and I listened to the remainder of the story for the first time. And the reason she took them away is because in the moments that followed the shooting, or the days that followed the shooting of the soldier, the residents of the town began to organize a pogrom, which is an ethnic cleansing. And the story actually works out pretty well for my family, thankfully, but I didn't know, and we found out that nobody in my family actually knew this story, that my great-grandmother, my Bobby Sarah, only left her for the tapes. So I knew for the residency that I wanted to look at this story and I wanted to dig into these tapes and spend time with Libby Sarah again. And so I listened to them extensively. I began work on the residency about, at the beginning of the Precarious Festival, so about 6 weeks before I went into the theater. I spent the first 5 weeks, 6 weeks researching. And to be honest, I did the research part very slowly. It's very difficult material to digest. There was a lot of personal and very visceral accounts taken of the experience of the pogroms. And I had to take a lot of breaks. Actually went camping in the middle, it was lovely. So I did that process, and then for about a week before I started my residency, I began storyboarding. And I worked with cue cards. And so I took all my notes and I put story prompts on my cue cards, and I put them up on the wall, and I ran through the stories a little bit and played with the order, and got drunk in my basement a fair bit and moved things around, you know. And my wife was very accommodating, and then I came into the theater, and the first thing I did is I walked in and I just stuck all these cue cards up on the wall, and began to sort of tell everybody what my intention was. And to be honest, up until about a week before, I had no idea what this would look like. I was playing with the idea of using poetry because that's certainly my wheelhouse. And then in the process of storyboarding it, I knew that I just wanted to work with the story, and the idea came to me that I wanted to imagine myself telling the story to my daughter, who is currently 7, when she is old enough to learn this history. And so the story became me in the kitchen, making matzo ball soup when my daughter comes home from school for the first weekend after being away. And I wanted to work with projection because I love working with projection, and so we actually framed a whole bunch of picture frames on the wall, and we projected family photos into the frames, and then the photos changed as I told the story, which was a much more difficult task to produce than it actually looked like in the final effect. It was a beautiful effect. And I have to also extend like a massive thank you to the team here. I remember about a week before the residency, I had my "what the hell am I doing" moment. And I called up Kate, and we had a chat on the phone. And I got off the phone, and we were talking to a friend afterwards, and I was like, honestly, Kate just said, "We've got you." And I was like, nobody's done that for me in a long time. I feel really, really held here. And so I felt really confident coming into the space. And then the tech team here was amazing and like so accommodating with like all of my nutty. Like there was a whole day where we sat here and like to make the projections framed up, we had to build a mask. And there was a moment there where like we're sitting here and like Shannon and Eryn are watching, and I'm on the computer, and then we're trading spots, and it's like, okay, touch that box and push up once with the arrow key. No, twice. No, 3 times, right? And so just like hours of like moving this here and there, and then we got it all lined up, and then certainly Ryan with the lighting and the sound and getting the space set up and all the advice, and it was just such an incredibly like accomplished and brilliant team to work with that it made me, as somebody who hasn't done theater since I was like in a serious way since I was in high school, to be honest, feel so confident moving through this. And it was just such a gift. I got to spend time hanging out with this woman and falling back in love with this woman that I loved so well as a child, and having this adult conversation with my great-grandmother. And then also exploring questions of luck and all of these things, because the truth is my family survived this experience by literally like a chance the thickness of a piece of hair, like it was that close. And so it's great. And then also the complicated nature of these stories. I mean, the stories of the pogroms have been used. On the one hand, I mean, it's a great warning of the dangers of genocide and racism and the cyclical nature of anti-Semitism. And on the other hand, these stories have been used to justify the colonization of Palestine and the development of Israel as an apartheid state. And on the other hand, these stories have been used to inspire solidarity between Jewish and Black leaders in the United States and the Civil Rights Movement. This stuff is very complicated. And even the caring for and the sharing of these stories is a precarious process, fraught with all kinds of uncertainty. And so to be able to like invest time in all of that in this space and to spend so much time working on process was just such a profound gift. And I've said thank you so much. They're so sick of hearing me say it, but it was just such a moving experience. And one of the things that I know we had a conversation early on, I think the conversation I had with Ryan, where he said, one of the reasons we do this is we want to be able to invest time in people so that they can continue their process and take what they do here and continue to work with it in the future. And I have other theatrical projects that I'm super excited about and I've taken out of this and really carried with those. And so it's been just a wonderful experience.
It's not a requisite that the artists say that they're grateful. Like,
definitely
It really is not.
you could say they were horrible, you know.
Bunch of losers.
They were a bunch of losers. So our final residency was Hilary Ware, who's gone to the washroom. So I can say anything I want about Hilary, and she won't know. So Hilary, originally from out west, a Métis artist, but has been embedded in the communities here for a long time and does a lot of work with the Anishinaabe language and works as a therapeutic clown and does clown work. I did a little bit of clown work myself in the past, so I I know this much about it, and I've just always admired Hilary's incredibly fearless, hilarious, but very sometimes disturbing places that Hilary will go with that work, and the openness and the willingness to risk. And Hilary always does, like all these artists, do more. Like one of the reasons we offered residencies to all of these people is because all of you just take this much and do more with it. Sometimes to the detriment of your own health and sanity. And then Hilary really surprised me because then suddenly became a duo. And I'll let you guys talk about that. But yeah, Hilary Ware and Sarah McNeilly.
Oh, too slow. Do you want to go? Can you go first? Or no?
I can. I think I was originally brought on to this project as a designer because sometimes I make cool stuff out of nature stuff. And then Armageddon happened, and it had been quite some time since I had had any opportunity to do anything remotely creative. And Hilary, being the incredibly generous spirit that she is, didn't really give me many parameters. And I thought I'd be pretty foolish not to take full advantage of this experience, both feet in. And a clown was born. And I am better for it as a human being.
How so?
Because we all need to play. That is what makes us human. And I don't know why I'm so emotional talking about this. We all need to see and be seen. And that is what is at the heart of clowning. That is why it is universal. It is in every culture. And it is why in many cultures it is sacred work. This has been one of the most important weeks of my life. And I'm very, very grateful for it. And I think we're gonna play clown some more now.
Yes.
I have the bug. Ta-da!
Thanks for going first. Yes. What a bonus to have a collaborator. I work in the TTOK space as a studio space, sometimes in clown development work and mask related work, because it has no windows and because Ryan doesn't care what I'm doing and doesn't pay attention. So I do feel, like it is a safe space to do my weird work, and I'm always grateful for that. So when an opportunity comes, yeah, sure, take advantage of it. But lately I've been thinking, I wasn't actually thinking about doing clown work with this residency. I was head up around doing an environmental installation, creating a home for one of the personas that I work with, and I thought, why not work with an artist that I admire and that I find so inspiring. And she said yes. And then we started to go back and forth. And then there was delays, COVID, and then we got our week and it was going to be good. And I turned to Sarah. She was like, "I'm so excited to be doing clown." And I was like, "Well, that's what we're doing." And so we did that, and because how could you not? Like Sarah, I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she's a very strong physical comedian and improv artist as well as an actor and what have you, and mime, which is a whole other thing. But clowns and mimes, no. But I'll tell you secretly that she does have mime. But we didn't use it, so it's okay. But yeah, so we did the environmental installation. Anyway, Sarah brought a lot of enthusiasm and commitment, and we just committed to doing the residency and to supporting each other's process, which was easy and made easier by the fact that we were supported by TTOK and all the people that they attract and enslave. And
That's true. That's true.
I mean, inspire. And yeah, so we got to do what we wanted, and we wanted to do a lot, and we did a lot of it. And there's lots more to do, of course. But I'm really struck by. I am one of the few people who, well, I don't know if that's true. Anyway, I don't have a lot of barriers to doing my work. I make my own schedule. I'm largely self-employed, and I have now, at this point in my life, financial resources, and I can do my work where I want and when I want. But what I find is that I find it very challenging to do work unless I've made an external commitment. So residency like this gives me the structure, and it also gives me a sense of responsibility, right? So that is such a gift. The community work that has been a big part of what I consider my arts work has been sort of on hold, and Sarah's willingness to collaborate and the energy that she brought and openness that she brought to the process really made me feel like the residency was working on lots of levels in terms of supporting the clown community and the theater goers. We chose to not offer something that was digital because we just don't have those skills, and we don't want to offer, we'll offer Crappy Project live, but not on a thing, because live you have it can never really, the show can be crappy or not, but the experience is co-created. So you know what I mean? There's always an opportunity for a win, right? If you're sharing an experience. So anyway, I think I've talked for 5 minutes.
I think it's obvious. I mean that just the incredible work that was accomplished by these artists and also different from each other. And all, you know, we've all kind of touched on it. In the background is the pandemic, of course, and we did have to postpone the festival 3 times. Like, oh my God, like even that was exhausting. And then like coming in and doing this work again after such a long pause was so moving for me, and I realized how much I need it. I just need to be around creative people being creative, whether I'm involved or not. And you know, that for me personally was a great thing. But every single artist, I think, more or less felt that. We all were like this. Wow, we really learned what we were missing. I think we should open it up. If anyone has questions or comments, Ryan, did you want to say anything? And Shannon?
Well,
Yes,
Shannon
what?
has something to say.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a 5-minute break before we do.
Let's do that. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
And people who don't want to stay for the Q&A or chat can go. And if you want to stay, then please do. Yeah. All right. Are we ready? There's actually a question on the online chat.
That's great.
There are a lot of people in there.
I know, they're watching. Including Vic's sister, one of Vic's sisters.
Sister-in-law.
In-law. Is
Yeah.
watching.
Hi, Nikki.
Sister-in-law.
Why don't we start with the online question?
Yes.
Is that crazy?
No,
And we'll
do
just
it.
build
Do
up
it.
anticipation.
Do it.
I think we
Okay.
should ask Carl.
Miss Underlander would like to know of Justin and Elisha, will any more books be published?
From like the Impossible book, like with that set of poems?
Yes.
No. If you missed it, you missed it.
You missed it.
Sorry about your luck.
That's kind of our motto, really, with what we do. We
Can
don't-
people find your other work?
Scarcity.
Where can people find your other work?
Ah, that's a good question. We have a website. If you look up Birdberry Press, you'll quickly get there through Google. It's a WordPress site, so the actual URL is kind of long.
I'd
But
also,
you can Google your way there easily.
I'd also like to clarify that Birdberry Press is Alicia's baby. I'm just
The poetry
the grunt,
editor.
the poetry
You're just a
grunt.
sucker.
She does all the work and all the thinking and all the designing and all that stuff.
And it's bird buried, not Burberry Press.
Pronunciation.
Yeah.
You really gotta hit those D's.
There's a comma in there. Bird,
Yeah.
comma,
Buried.
buried.
I'm reminded of a sketch comedy from my friend Charlie Petch, who has a list. And Charlie talks about their list, so it's okay to say this. But did a whole sketch comedy thing about a voice recognition thing going for WestJet. It's going, WestJet! WestJet! Does anybody have, and Jenn is with us again, so also questions for Jenn, or Jenn can answer the questions.
I have a question.
Yeah!
I was asked to.
I will
a question.
answer all of the questions.
But I actually do have a question for
And
Carl.
everyone.
I was wondering because, like, Victoria and I have Spotify, so we're paying $10 a month, so we feel like we're part of the evil empire. But we use it at, like, we would use radio because particularly where we live, it's not particularly easy to get radio. And so we use it like we used to use radio when I was a kid, and then I could then find music that I will then buy. And I'm thinking that this way the artists are getting more money. But see, one of the things that I've never really known is when I do buy a record or a CD or something that's like that, that's a hard copy thing that I take home and I have forever. Like generally, what is the percentage that the artist is getting on that? Like I've never really known that.
Yeah, so the music industry is like really opaque in how it like divides its money, and you ask one question, but there's like a million different things that stem from it. So I'll try and keep it very brief. But basically, like when you're buying physical media from independent artists, they generally get, you know, depending on like the run that they've done. Anywhere from, you know, 60 to 70% of what you're paying.
Even if it's done like using less like EMI or
No. Like if
okay.
you're buying from
If
an
it's
artist,
just theirs.
if you're buying from an artist that's on a label, everything from generally like pretty small labels to big labels, an artist might be getting nothing from that purchase because a label loans an artist money to make the record, and then the artist has to pay that back from their royalties. And royalties are generally 15%. So if you think about like the 15% that the artist is making, they get whatever 15% of $20 is. I don't know. Let's say 15%. They get $1.50 from every $10 purchase. They have to pay back their loan with that $1.50 each purchase. So it takes a long time, and artists are. And on top of that, like they don't even own the master recording. The label owns the master recording. So, you know, the system is rotten all the way down when it comes to major labels. But when it comes to like the ecosystem that I work in, which is like the DIY independent artist ecosystem, we're in the same mess that the major label people are, we're just in a different mess. Like, it's, major label artists are getting screwed even more by streaming because they are they already are sort of like whittled down through percentages. So the 0.0038 cents that they get per stream is actually like 0.0000 something per stream. And you know, lots of independent artists make a lot of money on Spotify. Like, if you are someone who writes your own songs, owns your master recordings, and let's say you don't have a band, you're a solo artist, you can make good money on Spotify. And I would argue they should even be making more. Like, that regardless of how the money is split up, like, music is worth something, and it's not worth what we're giving it.
But the artists that make money on Spotify, and this goes for, like, I know when Kate and I talk about this quite extensively about how, oh, you know, just get a Patreon account, or just put your stuff on YouTube, or, you know, and you can make it work. You just have to go on Twitter once in a while, make it work. Like, that's not how it works. Like, if you to make money on Spotify, it's slavish, right? To promote yourself, to understand, you've got to understand the platform. You've got to figure out how to get become one of those favorites, become one of those that gain the algorithm, so to speak. Like, it's a lot. So you're not just being, because you and I had this talk after the thing. I mean, you're not just being a musician anymore, right? So suddenly you're a tech entrepreneur as well as a musician, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're being forced into.
Yeah. And I think
we're all doing that.
Like, because what you're saying of, like, using it as a discovery mechanism and then, like, supporting artists in different ways, like, that's a valid thing to do. I mean, it's even like, if you just spend $10 a month on it and think this is a great deal, like, you are right. From a consumer perspective,
of course.
It's a fucking great deal, and in a way, people would be stupid not to take it. But what I'm getting at is that it requires, in the same way that Amazon is a really fucking good deal if you don't give a shit about the external costs.
Yeah.
The difference is that, or there's not the workers, in the case of, like, the Amazon employees of Spotify are the actual artists that you're thinking, like, look at my cool eclectic music tastes. I listen to indie rock and pop and chamber psych and whatever this year. These are my top 5 artists. It's like, those artists, you paid $120 for the year. You listen to however many thousands of songs. Like, just take a beat and think about it. And you know, it's.
But Amazon, it's funny. That's like a whole other thing that you're talking about there. I mean, I've had conversations with Tim, who works down here at the Blue Streak, about this. Blue Streak, right?
Yes.
Right. Anyway, you know, I don't like buying stuff from Amazon if I don't have to, so I always go in there. That's my second thing I do. It's like, okay, I'm not only going to buy the CD, I'm going to damn well go and buy it from a little store.
Yeah.
That's my other personal rule.
Yeah.
To try to help people out, small business people and the artists, as much as I can. And admittedly, perhaps it's more marginal than I thought. But when I tried to get, like, the latest album by what was I trying? I don't even remember, but somebody quite popular. I went into Tim's. I said, "Look, I want to get that." It was like a year. He couldn't get it in.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's telling me is that Amazon has basically bought the entire stock of it, so he can't get it.
Right.
I have to get it from Amazon if I want it. Like, that's what he's telling me. So, I mean, that just seems wrong to me somehow.
I think there's also a thing where, like, if you can't source it locally, like, do you really need it? Or, you know, like, if you can't find it.
You're addicted like that.
Well, no, I know. Like, you know, the obscure whatever record, like you were saying, if somebody's somewhat popular.
Yeah.
But, like, I understand, like, I literally can't find it anywhere else other than Amazon. I'm sure that happens all the time.
Yeah. New books is really bad.
But it's
Sure.
I mean, like
Try to buy
talking about,
poetry books.
like
anywhere.
scarcity
Like-
and art. Like part of what makes theater special is that it's a scarce experience. There's only so many people that can fit in the room and experience it at one time. Like, you know, the poetry books that you made are scarce, and therefore, like, there is a special value to them because they're scarce. But like, music is not scarce. It's like infinitely reproducible digitally, and we reached a point in the music economy where like where artists were basically like, you can't even give the shit away. Like there's so much of it that we just can't even give it like, you give someone a download code and they go, yeah, but what am I gonna do with this? Like my hard drive, like I'm gonna put this on my hard drive, like, oh jeez. So it's a particular like conundrum where I think like it would be interesting to bring back some kind of level of scarcity to music, and like the idea that like even just the idea that you cannot access all of it all the time whenever you want would be like a nice change of pace from where we're at now, where it's like you just have to think of the song and it's there, and that's like, I think it's kind of a problem.
Well, all information is like that.
But enough about that.
Ryan.
I have a question for all of the artists. Having done this, you all finished your weeks, you all finished your works.
You did, well,
You
or
did.
you did your residency.
You did what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Or not. Whatever. Would you do it again? And if so, what would you change? Brad.
Yeah, I most certainly would do it again. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, obviously, to be handpicked. It wasn't like a lottery or anything. Kate came to me, and I assume came to everyone else. So, I mean, that in and of itself is an honor to be just chosen. And there's of course funds for it, which, as Kate mentioned on that card, and I know Kate has been endlessly, you know, behind the machine to get all of the funding and all the people on board is an incredible amount of work.
Brad lives with me and has to see me. This is me writing a grant.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of this.
On a good day.
On a good day.
That's
On a good
after
day.
getting it. That's after getting it.
Yeah. That's what I get. We have to do it.
You know, of course, there's a ton of people who don't have that privilege and honor to do it. So that just even being chosen is great. Where you figure you are within the work, that's your own thing. Obviously, people get something out of it, and the fact that we're all able to come in here and create original works. I mean, where else is that happening in this city and most cities? I mean, of course it is happening, but it's rare. Like 10 artists in how many? 10 weeks, I guess, obviously.
9 weeks.
It's pretty staggering, really.
11 artists.
You
11
know,
artists.
At times you think, well, where the hell are all the people? Everyone says, well, we're out of the pandemic. Where are we? You know, we want to see theater. Well, where are those people? Sorry, I'm getting off topic here, but.
Okay.
What was the question now?
Would you do it again?
Would you do it again?
Yes, I would. Of course, I would do it. No, it's a great opportunity, and yeah, you need to push yourself, especially where I was. I just thought, I don't have anything to offer. I don't want to do it. I was, leading up to it, I was going to hate it, but you just trust that, okay, I have done things in the past. I assume I'll do something in the present and in the future. So yeah, of course you have to challenge yourself. Otherwise, why bother doing it? I mean,
Nice.
we can all just sit around and do what we've done before, or do something safe, or not do it at all. So yes.
Cool. Do we want to go to Jenn Cole over here on
Yeah.
bring her back in?
You're muted, Jen.
Damn it.
Shit. Can you okay, awesome. I like muted, unmuted really fast. Yeah, I need it. I think I need collaborators. I need the space to move things around without pressure to produce something. out the other side, like immediately. And I think everyone's speaking to like a generosity and an attentiveness and the power of focus and gift giving that happens in Theatre on King and in the festival. And so, yeah, like I'm not going to make work on my own in my living room. I will not. I will not. I need Kate to write the grant. I need Kate to like bring the people, and I need time set aside. And something that I didn't mention is that I actually got to do my residency over 2 weeks because everyone was accommodating my parenting schedule, and that's really special and also hyper rare that we get to work in any spaces where people are saying, do the gorgeous work of parenting and then do the gorgeous work of art making, and we'll make it work and work around you. And so that accommodation has been very big for me. But yeah, I do it again. Heck yeah.
Just threw down there.
Whoever else wants to take it.
Can I speak for both
Well,
of
I
us?
was gonna say, yeah, we probably have the weirdest answer of everything.
No.
I think we would do another residency. I don't think we would do that.
Yeah.
Again.
Fair
There's a
enough.
lot.
That's fair.
I wouldn't let you. I don't think I'd want to watch you that 2-hour period where it was like you'd lie on the air mattress and then this alarm would go off and it'd be like, oh, and like I was like, it was horrible.
Oh, sorry, I should clarify. I wouldn't do 24, I'd do 48 hours if we're going to do it.
Do the whole week.
And you'd start at 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we would do differently.
Yeah. I have a question, unless somebody else wants to jump in on that question.
Well, I guess I want to say that it was a kind of alchemy that happened the 2 weeks that I did it. I don't know if I could, like, yeah, it would be great to try it again, but are we gonna, is that gonna happen again? Like, I remember after the dress rehearsal, Kate and I, we come backstage and we looked at each other and we went, that was really good. We were like, right? And we were like, right? Like it was that kind of a surprise. And it's not because we didn't have confidence in ourselves and it wasn't going to be good. Like it wasn't that. It was just that something, and it went poof, right? It's something just went together. And I don't know, so would that happen again? It's hard to know. And that's the great thing about, theater, right? Is that was a really special woof and it happened. And I mean, will we capture it on the video? Because we are making a video. Eryn's going to do a brilliant job. Like she's going to make a great video. I just said in my mind, it would be great. Will they capture that? I don't know. Like I don't know.
How long
I
was
heard
it
that
between
over
the
there.
initial state, when you put it on first at Buddy's, and now?
It was a really long time. It was
25 years.
I don't think she wants to say.
Okay, so 10 years. Well, I'm just saying that
No,
same
it was
amount of
30-something
time.
years.
Oh.
No, like Bradley
You could do
Boyle.
it again.
No, Bradley Boyle thought we could do it in another 30 years and just have my urn. That's what it is. That's adorable. You're adorable.
I have to say, and I'm sorry, Vic, I hope this is okay, but one of my favorite things was watching Victoria Ward and Bradley Boyle, separated by some years and some gender identifications and everything else, but the two of you, and it's partly the curly hair and just, and the energy, and it was like you were just the twins separated at birth somehow, in some ways. It was a great pleasure.
I loved him. He was like my Damon toddler child.
He was.
I would always say yes to precarious residency opportunities because in both the ones that I've experienced, I have wanted to do a lot and have done a lot, but left some things on the table. We incorporated time in our schedule every day to do some development work towards some solo projects that we have, just to honor our varied interests and being in a creative studio space, and to have support for that and space for that. And we were able to do that, but in the last couple of days it got lost because of enthusiasm to do other things. So, and I remember that with the first Precarious residency too. I really wanted to share something in particular, and I was grieving at that time, and I was not able to pull it off. So I offered sort of an alternative vision. And I find that always, like, a week is a week is a week. And Sarah and I, in preparation for our week, we did, we had lots of pre-meetings and pre-work time so that we could make the most of the time here. But you can only work, 8-9 hours a day, and then the time is up. So there's always so much more, so much kind of left on the table. Like, a big part of the driving force in this residency for me was around sort of celebrating people's autonomy and seeing what sense choices they would make. Would people touch things? Would people want to share an enclosed space together? Would they drink in public from a teacup or a beer can or whatever? I really wanted to spray like sugar water on everything just to see what that would do for people. Would they want to know that Shannon was tracking everything? Would they need a sanitation log in order to go into the nest or what have you? And we got only so far with those sort of experimental ideas. But and Sarah was a great partner in this, because she's up for anything and has lots of good ideas and energy, and so we were able to offer lots of different things for people to experience or not. You know what I mean? And our residency, our work wasn't hung up on whether they joined or not, but it was important to us to offer it, and every offering was taken up, but that's something that remains with me, that feels left a bit undone. The understanding of what are we willing, what are people willing to do to themselves in public, in a shared environment, especially with this layering of germ phobia or what have you that we're currently within.
I think I would do it again, and I want to see how my grieving process is going to keep changing and shifting, so I want to explore that even more. But I also need Kate, Shannon, to give me the space and help me with ideas and collaborate with me. But I would do it again.
Yeah, I would absolutely in a heartbeat. And I keep thinking if there's anything I would change in the process. And the process was grueling in a lot of ways, and it was hard, and like so much sleep deprivation because I took on way too much in too short a period of time. But there's something about the crucible and how sort of under that pressure sometimes just such beautiful. Talking about, but it just felt like such a beautiful experience, right? And to have that. So absolutely, and I'm really excited to have this project to continue to develop now that it's sort of emerged. I had no idea what I'd come up with, and now that I feel like I've got actually a thing that has legs that I can work with, it's just wonderful. And then on top of which, to be able to take what I learned from this into future projects, and also the methodology that we all devised in the process of doing this, to be able to work with that again feels really fruitful. So.
Thank you.
Any other polemics, comments, questions? I had a little one. So one aspect of this residency that I came up with, partly because I realized during the pandemic I am an introvert, but I found out I'm less of one than I thought. And I missed the creative collaboration of performance so much that I was unable, like my other artist self writes, but I couldn't write prose at all. Anything that I did write was for performance during the pandemic, and it was really bad, but I wrote it because I missed performance, and I was like, that's interesting. And I think I already had the idea, but because you guys were working these different residencies, I had every artist had to interview another artist. So it was usually like incoming artist interviewed by the outgoing artist, more or less. Was that interesting? I was just hoping it would create a sense of community. I mean, you're all here now except we're missing Niambi, and we've lost Dan again. But, like we weren't able to really gather normally. Hi, Jen! Look, there's Jen's house! Look, she's moving! Yay! Were the interviews, I mean, it's stressful for some people I know. I got some people who are like, I don't know what to ask that person, But did it create a sense of connection with the artists that you talked to?
We loved doing both of ours. I thought they were really fun.
Yeah.
You guys were really good though.
So were you.
No, but you were you're really, really, I don't know. I mean, Carl is just really easy to talk to, so I don't even know if it was an interview. I just had a really nice time talking with him.
That was one of my favorite parts, actually.
Yeah, I really liked it too. Yeah.
Like, I come from a background of interview. I did a radio show for a long time that was interview based and did documentary work, which was a lot of interviewing, and it's so great. Like, it's great. It's I love asking people questions and being asked questions. It's like when you find out what you're all about. And we had a great one too. And we had a great one. It was online.
It was, yeah. It was great though. It was really funny.
It was.
Fun. Yeah.
We had a really good one, and we had a good one.
Yeah, we all had good ones.
And we're gonna have a good one.
Yeah, Jenn and Hilary.
I really loved it, and I also just want to add that the gatherings also, and those two components. I mean, because I'm also I love collaborative creation, and to have those opportunities to share. And it's also interesting. Like, I've had a couple of sort of side projects that have come out of those gatherings. Like, I met artists I'd never worked with before, and we got chatting, and Carl and I are working on something, and these things kind of emerge sometimes out of these unexpected connections in a residency like this, and that's so beautiful. Yeah.
Jen, were you gonna speak?
I was gonna say I'm excited. I kind of forgot that I get to do an interview with Hilary, and I definitely felt Niambi's absence because I didn't get to interview her. So I'm jealous of all of you, each of you. But yeah, it's fun. No, that's all I was gonna say. Yay, Hilary, Sarah, let's get together. It's fun.
Nice.
I think my favorite part of because Brad interviewed us, and he would he would take his glasses off, and then ask a question. But he would take his glasses off first, for effect, because he's theatrical by nature. And then he looked down at the page and wouldn't be able to read it. And he'd be like, Brad's a genius.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was all planned. That was all planned. It's all for the bit with Brad. All for the bit.
Can I do any chewing and point?
COVID safe. COVID safe. Oh my God, that's funny. I'm glad to hear that because I'm doing a public energy residency, which I'm of course excited. No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. That's such a lie. I'm full of dread about my residency. So all of you came in with feelings that weren't just positive, came in with fear or anger or I have all of those. I'm hating my public energy residency so much.
You know that people are watching this.
I know. I feel like I'm trapped now. I'm trapped and I have to do it. But when I found out, it's horrible. But anyway, oh my God. I tried to give the money back to Bill and he wouldn't take it. But the thing is, it was good because then I knew, like, when anybody had any feelings, I was like, I know, like, I wasn't like, oh my God, why are they so, like, ungrateful? Like, I was just like, no, I know exactly, like, because I'm so miserable. But one of the things, like, when I found out that I got it, I reached out, like, over the Facebook to, like, Naomi's one of them, and who's going to do a better job than me. It's going to be better. But I reached out to all the other people who got the residency at the same time, just going, hey, this is cool. And I thought, because I do have, like, my brain just works that way. I like connecting, I guess. And I feel like especially with the pandemic, we just need these opportunities. So again, it's not, you're not obliged to have liked those interviews, but the ones I did over here were so brilliant. Like, you're all so smart and sensitive and deep and just casually brilliant, and yeah, no, it's very cool. So those are all going to go up, we're going to have those audio files at some point with poor Eryn. Oh dear. She's going to run out of the door screaming. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just to pick up on that bit of dread, I loved what Jon said about that moment, like a week before, and you're like, I can't do this. Mm-mm. Like, we had that, like, ugh.
We didn't know what we were doing for like a long time.
Yeah, and that's so true. And I think, I'm not going to obviously speak for everybody, but I'm sure there's a certain amount of that in anything that you produce. Like,
if you
I
care
got to do the thing I agreed to do.
Yeah.
And like, we're all doing that now, even with like social interactions. Like, I'm going to that thing that is going to be fun. That sucks. I gotta go to this amazing thing. Right? But like, I think, I don't know. Did everybody feel that? Like,
well, I hadn't been on stage for 30 years. I hadn't performed.
That's an old hat, though, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not. I left theater for a reason. I didn't want to perform, and so it was. I was triggered, horribly triggered, in every possible capacity you can be triggered.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Come on,
Kerr. You can't say anything. They said Erin's name like 20 times. I haven't said anything.
Honestly, God, and I couldn't even complain at home because Ryan and Brad are part of the festival. Michael, you had your hand up.
Yeah, playing my role, I'm always the crane view guy. That's my role in this case, be the crane view guy. So I was just thinking as Justin was talking, is that the difference in this precarity of artwork there's all this support and there's a very different plastic container for how we all do that in the artistic process. And the business world just doesn't accept that because there has to be a plan that's like set and metered out and like delivered before you even start. Like I have to say, we have to know exactly what you're going to do 3 months ago before your show is going to be 3 months from now.
Yeah, right.
Well,
and there's something that doesn't work with the artistic process.
Don't kid yourself. The art world is like that too. Particularly if you're applying for grants. Mm. When you apply for a grant, you're supposed to tell somebody what it is that you're going to be doing. And you don't know what you're going to be doing. And it's extremely problematic.
Yeah.
And I wish they would cut that out, but they don't.
Cut it out!
Yeah, cut it out!
However,
cut it out!
But for this festival, I don't think anyone walked in knowing what they were doing.
No.
Well, Carl,
you might have had ideas of what you were going to do.
Carl
Very different from what I said I was going to do like 9 months ago.
Well, exactly.
And you don't know what it's going to be like. It's one thing to say, like, oh, we're going to do this thing. It's going to be 24 hours and 24 poems. Like, oh, I've written 24 poems. Written 1,000 poems or whatever. It's 24 poems, so 24 book covers. And
I
then
was
it's
a little
awful.
bit more daunted
And
by
it's
that than you
the
were.
worst. The worst experience of my life. Never do it again. Anyway, I had a great time.
I guess the question is, that's the model, but in order to have this, like this, I'm here, it's great to be here, by the way, and I'm sorry I missed so many performances because I was in and out of pandemic and I wish I saw everything everybody did. But I look around the room and I'm like, Shen's over there and Andy's taking pictures and there's another artist over here, a painter, writers on my left, and other actors on the left here, like, something about that trust in walking into a thing completely open seems to be what makes the model work. And I just wonder what you all think about that, having done the experience. Because I'm kind of the outsider in the art thing. I'm like the commentator. How about for you, Sarah? Because you've had to do like super precarity during this time.
A little bit. Do you know what? It's interesting that I'm hearing everyone talk about that moment that normally does arise in, at least in my own experience, in an artistic process of like that, the toiling that we think has to happen. And that didn't once for me in this experience, for the first time ever. Normally, I don't know if I've internalized, that modeling and that idea that it's not worth it unless it's painful and all of these things. But I think maybe because it was a collaborative effort, and also just because I was so desperate for because of the precarity that I've been living in so many different ways, I was just so desperate for any chance to interact and to have creative joy back in my life, that there was a forfeit, if you will, to any expectation, to any idea of perfection or finished product or anything. It was a commitment to myself and to my collaborator to 100% be present in the process, wherever that took me. And for the first time in my life, there was no toiling. There was no fear, there was no stress, there was none of that normally comes. It was just amazing joy. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And that is something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life, into future endeavors, into my artistic practice. Oh, life doesn't have to be this hard. What a novel idea! Like, oh, this can be joyful. This can be. It's what we make it. And I think, yeah, no, screw all of that. No more toiling. Toil free! Toil free!
Toil no more. I feel like for me, art making is always going to be hard, and yet you have to find those moments of joy. And there's no, if you're passionate about something, there's going to be some terror involved somewhere, because you care, right? But it's about understanding how to ride that, and then what do you need to nourish you and support you so that the terror doesn't just become the thing, So that's no good. I don't believe that I've never made good art from my my suffering's material, but it's not. I need to be well fed, and usually not in an abusive relationship is nice. Like a roof over your head, things like that, are important. So. I don't, the Garrett thing, no. I mean, we all know that. Don't need to even talk about it. You don't have to starve in a garret to make good art. That's not true. But yeah, that whole thing about like planning ahead, I feel like the art of grant writing is the art of just making it sound like you know what you're going to do in a way that bears at least a resemblance to what you think you're going to do, so that when you do your final report, it doesn't look like so far away from what you said. But I myself have lost that skill. I haven't got a grant for my own work in a long time. But at one time I was quite good at that. I knew how to do that. Yeah, I've lost it.
I'm also a big believer in what Brad said about we've all done something before.
Oh yeah.
And if you've done something before, I always kind of say science it. You've done this before, you can do this again. And this might sound bad, but it's time for some negativity. understand poets really. I don't understand when poets say like, I think that's it. Like I don't have anything in me. Or like they're very like, I need to copyright everything and whatever. Like, if you don't have anything left in you, and like I know there's moments where you feel like that, but like to make everything so precious and dear, like we talk about scarcity, like that's why we make our books scarce, because there's always going to be more stuff, because it's a lifetime pursuit. And I know that's not the way, and it is for a lot of people, and things happen and you lose track, and that's happened to me too. But yeah, like if you've done it before, you can certainly do it again. And it's not going to be the same, but like I try to keep in mind like what you're doing, like what Sarah said, like what you're doing as you're doing it. Like try to be in the moment a bit, but also keep in mind everything behind you that you've done, and you're ideally building. You're always kind of getting better, even if you're not aware of it. And like in an environment like this, people are like making you aware that you're getting better, or that you're getting better, whatever that means. Building, getting more experience. You know, honing your craft, whatever you want to call it. Right?
That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Like I came into, I was kind of like the substitute for Vic's thing. It was like they're like, we need someone else who has long hair. I wasn't privy to that conversation.
I think it was your guitar skills.
I really can't play guitar. I'm just really good at faking it. So, like, I scream my face off in my band. I'm like a grunge band. And then they're like, oh, you can do some music for play? I was like, yeah. I totally do music for play. Totally can do that. Really? Can I? Like, who knew? You know? So I came into it and I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
You know? But I feel like just listening to everything everyone said, that's how everyone went in. You know? I was super worried. I haven't done anything like theatrical since I was like 16, man. I'm 31 now.
Yeah.
Like I was like, do I remember? I like wink at people when I'm playing songs and screaming at them. But it's not the same deal, you know? Like that's it.
Winking and screaming, that's good.
Yeah, I just I know all the screams. You know? But yeah, it's funny. It's funny to listen to all you guys say your thing, and I was like, I thought they'd have this stuff like I'm so glad everyone was on the same page as like even the people who came in to do side things being like, I'm not really sure. The person who leave was like, I totally got my shit together. I was like, I believe it. Vic was like, I got a play here. I was like, we got a whole play, we're set. You know? I have no idea how to do it yet, but I was like, there's a whole play.
See, and you see how much fun Zach was for 2 years.
It was great. I'll shut up now, but yeah, that's all I was saying.
I was starting to talk about it before, but for me, precarity is about the relationship with the will, and you know, when I look at the definition of precarious, it's like it's dependent on something that you can't count on. You know, there's that inconsistency or that lack of security, or that I think of it as tethering. But like that your base is not stable, that what you're dependent on is not fixed or guaranteed, right? And that is something that I don't find true whenever I am doing expressive arts work or collaborating or doing community work also, that because there is a connection to some kind of a sourcing that you can count on, you know, and that's I think why I'm so happily process driven, because I'm just in relation with that sourcing thing that I can count on, and yeah.
And I think, like, I mean, art is, among other things, like a lifelong process of learning, right? Like, through art, I come to know myself, my community, the place I'm living in, and I think as part of my practice for a while now, I've been trying to be very self-aware of my own practice, and also scan for those moments when I'm, like, in my head and I'm causing myself I say harm or difficulty, but like those moments, right? And it's amazing how like having had the blessing to be able to do this a few times, not just this, but like in various capacities, and to say like to have that moment and be like, oh wait, oh I've been here before, I know what this is, and to be able to like be kind to yourself in that moment and know that it will pass. And that's a lifelong process of learning. But that's been a big part of my work, and I'm very blessed in like the other part of my life, like I get to teach like strategies for making intentional changes in your life, and so like that's part of what I do as a counselor, and so like I'm able to bring that into my practice as well a little bit, and so but I agree, like working with other people, there's an energetic exchange, and there's an opportunity to like collaborate and draw on each other's strengths and alleviate each other's concerns, and to be able to hold each other through this process if you're doing it really well, even when it's really difficult and sometimes dramatic and all these other things. But like there's a real beautiful model for community in art if we give ourselves the opportunity to see it, and it's going to be messy sometimes, and it's going to be hard sometimes, and at the same time, I think like that's the like the deepest and most profound place from which I create is that in collaboration and community with other people. That's why opportunities like this feel like such a blessing, right?
I like to think of my process as like running towards the edge of a cliff. Towards the edge of a cliff. The times when it feels the best is when I'm like sprinting towards the cliff, because like I'm at the bottom of the cliff is like freedom to never have to do anything again. And so it's like racing towards the edge with like absolute conviction, and then every time you get to the edge, like just more ground appears somehow, and then there's another edge to like run towards, and sometimes you create the ground, and sometimes it's like your community around you that creates the ground that appears in front of you. And like I think that if there is a next Precarious Festival, that it shouldn't be the rat that's the mascot anymore. It should be like the fool and like the tarot card, like the person on the edge of the cliff who's just like having a blast. Like just not necessarily that they're happy to be there, but that they're because it's a hard place to be, but that it's like you find out things about yourself when you're on the edge of something, and that's why I think like I would encourage, as much as Justin makes it sound awful to do something for 24 hours straight, I would encourage anyone to. It doesn't have to be art. It can be like a meditation retreat or whatever. Like do things for long periods of time until like something starts changing, like or like. There are magical things that happen when you like really go deep into something for long periods of time, and if it means staying up for 48 hours, then go for it. 48 hours on the way.
I've always been like it's hyperbolic when I talk about how awful it was or whatever. Because it's just more fun to talk about how awful it was than these little joys along the way. I'm not that type of person.
We know that.
I'm not built that way. But of course there were a ton. Like I still remember, which Kate referenced, when like I was asleep and like it was at my lowest point, like probably hour 15 or something.
It's pretty gruesome.
And Kate, I can hear Kate, and I'm like lying down trying to sleep for 10 minutes or something. And I just like it was Naomi's poem. And I wrote it and apologized to the live feed. I was like, I phoned that in. I'm sorry. And then just like booked it for the front room and laid down. I was like, I'm done. And then Kate, I could hear Kate saying to somebody like, it's just like, it's torture. Like I have to wake up. I have to wake up because we have to perform the poem and show the cover on the hour. And she's just like in her voice, she's like pain. Like it's torture. I have to go wake him up soon, and like I just want him to sleep.
And you were like, "Shut up, Kate! I'm trying to sleep."
We're talking with Ryan about the Leafs at 4 a.m. You know, like there were many.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, right. And walking the banner through, like anywhere, like Shannon or Eryn or Kate walking the banner, or Ryan walking the banner through the room. Like art is work, and that became kind of the mantra for the night. Like as soon as they would march the banners, they'd be like, artist work, to the point where it became like a weird short form that I started riffing on. I can't remember what I started saying. Anyway.
But like, because you guys shared that experience with us through that live stream, it's then our experience of what was going on here is just as valid. And I found the entire experience so delightful. And, you know, there was zero suffering for the other charming, and I got a fantastic book and a really wonderful poem, and, you know, I mean, it was just win, 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 win for me. And so, like, when you share it, then it's so multifaceted what it becomes. Like, I'm not,
Absolutely.
Your experience is valid, okay. But so is everybody's that you shared it with.
That's right.
So it's like you create this many-headed monster or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was such great. It was such, like, I've been having a shitty year, and in large part, there's been a lot of shifting within my primary relationship. And so to see a couple working together I found great. And I was seeing you through that lens just because of my experience in this last year. And also just, like, there was a lot going on, even while there was nothing happening. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing happening, there was a lot going on.
I'm sorry. This woman over here made 24 pieces of art.
Never stopped working.
Never stopped working.
Never stopped working.
Every time I turned
There's
it
a
on,
lot
she was
going on.
gluing something, cutting something, gluing
Exactly.
something. I was just like blown away.
And
They weren't all winners, though.
I was gone about half the time. Smoking or, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was just doing this.
In the time lapse, Justin always looks like that, and I'm just like,
Very entertaining.
And Lisa's like, I don't know if I can finish it on time. I'm just like, oh, yeah, well, whatever.
I had to go to sleep, but when I woke up, you guys were still there. And you guys were there for my whole next day. Like, it was really generous.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I had similar experience.
So, I think we should wrap this part up, but we don't have to go away. But Ryan, would you like to say anything? I was just thinking because it all happened here. I'm putting Ryan on
Well,
the
I would
spot
like
now.
to thank everyone for entrusting in the space and all of the staff here for your projects. I think I think we were all humbled by all of the things that you brought into the space and the way you went about your projects was very different. But at the same time, it was very engaging for all of us because every week we had to come in and figure out what this artist wanted. And it was about a completely different thing. But again, that's really exciting. It's really engaging. I think it's really important. And I also think for the staff here, it's really engaging in the sense that, okay, now we're on to this, now we're on to this, now we're on to this, now we're on to this. And everything was different, right? Sometimes we had lots of projections. Sometimes we had lots of staging. Sometimes we had lots of dancing. Sometimes we had nothing to do at all because everything was done on day one. And it's like, oh, that's fine too, right? But it was really exciting not knowing what was coming up. Even though we knew who was coming, we didn't know what was coming up because each project was so unique. Each project was very standalone on its own, which I think is really exciting. I love the fact that we have this many artists in this town that want to create new work. And I think that's so important. And I really hope that all of you continue on with the work that you started here and even bring it back in the next stage of its development or in its final stage of development. or if there's anything you want to do in the future, please feel free to get in touch with us, right? Because this is what this space is about, right? It's about a place you can afford to fail. So please come and fail. Like honestly, come and fail. You're allowed to fail. I don't think anyone says that enough. You don't have to succeed every single time. Just come and try.
Amen.
And I think as long as we're all trying, then I think I have a lot of optimism about this community. So thank you all for coming and actually trying. Honestly, thank you all. And before I completely finish, I'd love to thank the staff here.
Yeah.
Eryn, Shannon's birthday was yesterday.
Shannon, yes.
Sagittarians are the best people ever.
And again, thank you all to the audience as well for coming out. Andy Carroll for taking the photos of the festival the entire time. Honestly, everyone has been fantastic, and I think this festival couldn't have gone better.
Yeah.
So, thank you all.
You don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave, but you can't stay here all night.
As long as the disco
there
ball's
anything-
going, we're good.
When you do you have anything last? Anything to say left? Kate? No? All right, Eryn, shut her down.
You should come over there.
Sitting on that comfortable block. Comfortable, all these floors.